Okay, today I'm going to be trying to explain why a magnet pushes and pulls at the poles. I've said energy has two leaders, but Ken L. Wheeler, who says he wrote the book on magnetism, is bringing out his 4th edition soon. Well, I'm going to point out a massive problem in his 3rd edition, let's just say. Now, I've said that electrical energy from the EM field, electromagnetism through matter causes electricity. So there is electricity in a magnet, and then when it exits the magnet, electricity through matter causes electromagnetism. So electromagnetism is actually just an electromagnetic flare on top of the magnet, because that's how it happens. Electricity through matter causes electromagnetism, and electromagnetism through matter causes electricity. And I've said there is a clockwise rotation and a counterclockwise rotation. I've said that clockwise is pushing matter. It rotates clockwise, and so like a spring, shuttles matter forwards. Counterclockwise is twisting counterclockwise, and so shuttles matter backwards, but the whole string is moving forwards. So I'm going to show why this pattern actually occurs by rotations. This has never been seen before, never even thought of, never explained, so I'm giving it my best shot. I haven't been working long with magnetism, so we'll have to see how it goes. First off though, we're going to listen to Ken L. Wheeler, aka Theoria Apophasis. On YouTube, he is currently the king of magnetism, and so I just want to point out a mistake he's made and show why he is incorrect. Now, Ken's about to try and explain how energy goes around a magnet, and he draws it in 2 dimensions, but then refers to it as a torus. I will explain what is wrong with his explanation.
This two-dimensional representation of force and motion, which creates this hypertrochoidal formation, or what most people would call, it's the spirograph pattern, is the necessitated field pressure mediation of how magnetism can and must express itself. And here's the empirical, observational criteria for obviously what it is. I mean, these are real pictures.
And so there's Ken's fundamental problem, is that he's taking a line that went underneath the magnet and is applying it to the top of the magnet, which I believe is incorrect.
What is here, if this is the model of an atom, which it is, if it were a coherent atom, this is how it expresses itself. This is a 2-dimensional toroid, which is expressed as a 3-dimensional toroidal force and motion reciprocation. Now you're only seeing 2-dimensional reciprocation vis-a-vis my drawing here, but what you can't see is the fact that it is expressing and extrapolating itself as a reciprocating processional hyperboloid, which navigates out this hypertrochoidal formation. That is the only way that force and motion can express itself. Now, while this is a 2D drawing, you actually can see the 3-dimensionality of the toroidal shape, which defines this.
Okay, I'm just going to repeat what Ken said, just so I can define exactly what is wrong with what he is trying to teach.
This 2-dimensional representation of force and motion, which creates this hypertrochoidal formation, or what most people would call, it's the spirograph pattern, is the necessitated field pressure mediation of how magnetism can and must express itself. And here's the empirical, observational criteria for obviously what it is. I mean, these are real pictures.
Okay, now I've always used double helix energy theory on, let's say planets, as you've got positive coming in through the bottom and negative coming in through the top, and so positive goes coming from the sun's poles, either side of the earth into our poles. I've always said that energy comes up and through, turns into a halo wave, and the clockwise rotation catches the counterclockwise rotation, rolls over it, and then spins clockwise, and then rolls around the planet and rolls at the inertia line, let's say the equator. And then one negative comes in from the top, or positive, just the opposite, rolls into a halo wave at the bottom, but because it's negative, it's pulling in, and because positive is pushing out, we have one positive coming up through the top, which is pushing out on a magnet, and then in planetary systems it's coming down through and it is counterclockwise on the bottom, and so it is pulling in because clockwise pushes and counterclockwise pulls. So for a magnet to explain, for Ken to be explaining how the magnet works, we would need to have energy going in directly through both poles. Now, if this is true, what he says is kind of correct, but everything meets at the inertia line and does not go in at the bottom. It can't. So energy has to be going up positive, so it pushes outwards, and down through negative, so it pulls inwards, like a planetary system with a disk, like Saturn's rings. That's how I've been applying double helix energy theory. But due to me not knowing a lot about magnets, and from listening to Ken, I'm under the assumption that energy is only going one way through it. And so what Ken says about if it's only one way, Ken is incorrect. If it's two ways, kind of, but it doesn't go in at the bottom, because that would again would be clockwise pushing when it's been inverted, so it would be counterclockwise pulling, which would be pushing outwards again because the field inverts in a phase shift at the inertia line. Oh no, this is getting complicated. So basically I'm going to try and explain it in at least one way and we'll go from there. Okay, here is Ken's fundamental problem, which totally contradicts his explanation of his mag paper pictures. He goes out, but as we can see at the top picture, what I say, my picture added on top to explain what he's saying, shows it going around and then underneath. So all we would see on top is this picture. You would not see it coming back in because it is not coming back into the top. It is going into the bottom. And so this picture shows that Ken's observations are incorrect, because as we can see, this is not just lines going counterclockwise and spinning underneath, unless of course it's my mistake and we can see both sides of the magnet at the same time through the ferro liquid. Do you understand what I'm saying? This picture only goes one way and then the rest goes underneath. So if that's true, then this picture is incorrect because it has a return line as he keeps drawing, but that line's underneath. So if we can see both sides of the magnetic field here, then that's just a little confusing and it should have been explained so. But because I know that there's two leaders, I'm now going to explain it using double helix energy theory, which has positive and negative leaders and they spin clockwise and counterclockwise. Okay, so this may be complicated. I've built a physical model of what is actually happening, so let's go through it. Now this is where I discovered the two leaders in water, and Ken is actually mistaken. It's not an egg pattern, it's actually a pine cone pattern. And as you can see, same pattern that's found in magnetism is found here in flowing water, which means that magnetism isn't real and it's energy flow, and that's going from a dielectric circuit downwards into a water flare, which is exactly the same as a magnetic flare. So I have here in water and not magnetism leaders going in two ways to cause a pine cone pattern, and then at the outside there is an Ouroboros torus ring, which is where everything is rotating. The fact that I have two leaders on mine show that there is two leader travel all the way out through the Ouroboros and out and underneath the magnet. It is not possible for that water to be spinning out and then spinning back into the middle. It's not possible, obviously. Okay, up on the top right there, I've actually made the physical demonstration of a clockwise and counterclockwise pair of leaders which shoot up through the middle, pass through each other, spin around to face each other, and then clockwise rolls over counterclockwise and spins it in the opposite direction, so that counterclockwise, which is pulling, which is at the bottom of the magnet, is not pulling at the top. It is literally a spring that has been straightened, because clockwise is now rolling, counterclockwise is now rolling clockwise, and so is cancelled out, literally. The spring is unwound and straightened, whereas the clockwise rotation rolls over the counterclockwise and keeps rolling clockwise. And that is the picture, that the video I've got running at the top there. energy can be compared to a scroll. So if you unroll the edges, bring them around to the front, one traveling counterclockwise and one traveling clockwise, it will overpower it, spin over it, and create a sheath, which is why you've got that little hole at the top. But this is how you make a sphere. That rolls around, and all it does is tighten at the top, so you would probably get a spiral there in the end. But that is a hole because it is a rollover halo wave which came around to the front and rolled around. So now there is a clockwise curve going round clockwise. Okay, so we have a look at our picture in the middle here, and I'll try and explain it without. I knew it would be easier to do what I've got there. And that double vortex then is at the inertia line, spins down and inverts itself and flips the other direction, so that the polarities are going in the different direction. So you've got pushing at the top and pulling at the bottom. Okay, back to the middle picture. Okay, top left, we have counterclockwise and clockwise rotations coming out of the magnet. Second picture in the middle at the top, and we're going from left to right. Clockwise spins around, clockwise comes around, clockwise rolls over counterclockwise and spins clockwise, because we've got clockwise, which is the whole thing spinning clockwise, and then that splits into two, so we have counterclockwise and clockwise, because inside every single there is another pair of doubles. So if it splits into counterclockwise and clockwise, that clockwise now has a counterclockwise, and the counterclockwise now has a clockwise. So it doesn't cancel it out, it retards it and literally lengthens and straightens the spring that is rolling along, for basic kind of explanation. So then we drop down to almost the middle on the left there, that dome, that would be the sheath that has been created. And as you can see, we have a galaxy S of the interlinked wave, and this is the only one that lights up, and so it spins around to clockwise. Now the next one that comes out though from the center, because it's one wave after another, that's why you get Ouroboros Taurus donuts around it all, not just one but several. The next one that comes out is inverted, and so it's got clockwise on the left and counterclockwise on the right this time. But as it spins around, it does the exact opposite. Clockwise rolls around counterclockwise, spins over the counterclockwise, and again cancels it out. So then we get the pattern going to the right, going counterclockwise, because you've still got the whole thing spinning clockwise plus counterclockwise. So do you see there's always two clockwise, because it's always spinning clockwise. So it doesn't matter which way we invert the field, one after another, clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, so it's opposite. It's always spinning clockwise, so you're always going to have clockwise plus counterclockwise plus clockwise. So you can get both directional pictures when you reverse the field, so that it then travels a different way, but it's still all traveling clockwise. So one cancels out the counterclockwise and it's all still rolling clockwise. And that picture there, if I just invert my video at the top there, you would see what is happening in the other direction. But it's all still traveling clockwise, so it's all pushing outwards, because clockwise is a spring that coils forwards, and if you put a ball on top of that, it will rotate the ball forwards. Energy moves matter. It rotates it either forwards or backwards. That is it. The counterclockwise, although pushing forwards, is rotating backwards, and that's why you get oxygen and hydrogen at different poles. And it's only sort of on one side of the magnet, and that's because the other side is this counterclockwise movement being cancelled out. That's a different one. That's a hard one to explain. But one side is clear and one side is cloudy. But one side is transporting hydrogen and oxygen. The other side kind of isn't transporting anything. It's just kind of held there. But basically, that's how the sheath around every single magnetic field is created, because it is layered like an onion, just like our atmosphere, and I've shown that to be the pine cone design as well, and every other plant in existence and everything else. So yeah, one sheath spins one way, one sheath spins another, but they're all traveling clockwise. So that top part is all traveling clockwise, which means it's all pushing out and rotating outwards to the edges. Then it goes past the inertia line, inverts itself, as I've shown with simple pictures like this, and then the whole field is reversed, so it's actually pushing in or pulling in. And I've got that down the bottom. You invert and switch at the inertia line for the opposite counterclockwise pull. And that is how a magnet truly works, because energy is rotating. Everything is rotating because energy rotates matter. Energy attracts matter, matter covers energy, and energy moves matter. Matter is dead, it doesn't move. Electricity and electromagnetism inflate and charge separate all particles, and they have to move and they have to cross a magnet. And so if force is only going in one direction, then the force goes upwards, out, inverts at the inertia line, and then pulls in because the fields are inversed. And yet with a north and south pole beam of energy going through both, you would have the clockwise at the top and the counterclockwise at the bottom, kind of based on this electrical drawing that I did. If you put a beam from either end, you will get clockwise spin at the top, counterclockwise spin at the bottom, which is the two beams coming off the poles on the sun into our planet. And if you twirl your fingers clockwise at the top and counterclockwise at the bottom, or the other way around, you will get a counterclockwise motion, which is what spins us round the sun. So magnets could very well be dealing with stuff at both ends, or it's exactly as I've just explained it, with one directional flow. There must be an inversion at the bottom, a flipping of the fields so that it pulls in rather than pushes out. Otherwise it just pushes in, but then you wouldn't get this picture at the equator. This is my screenshot of my collections showing that electricity charge travels as a vortex. This planetary body shows that there is an overlap because of the two different directions of travel. There are many more. This shows the pine cone. This is the religious symbol for the dielectric circuit with the pine cone waveform. Here's smoke travel compared to the electric universe. That purple picture of theirs has energy from the top and the bottom, and so does smoke. So magnets may well have that too, although I'm getting the understanding that there's only one direction. And this is to show that what I'm doing is actually kind of biblical. If you notice the Jesus on the right there with one hand up and one hand down, well, that's the same as some energy travel. I've tried to draw every mode of energy travel, but basically in the center at the bottom there, you've got in the center three pictures: halo wave, right arm up, right arm down, left arm up, right arm down. And as we see, the Baphomet, or whoever that is on the left, he copies Jesus because the enemy wants to be like God. And from God's hand, horns protrude, which again is another inferring of several other religious kind of things. But yeah, energy travel has been portrayed by the picture of Jesus and by the imitation of the enemy of God. And so this isn't, something that I've just been looking at. This is something that I found to be in everything from mythology to religion. And of course, magnetism, and God has horns coming out of his hand, and we see horns coming out of a magnet. But again though, it all comes down to this little video that I've got, which proves that magnetism doesn't exist. Only energy flow does, and the universe is electric and electromagnetism, and so is God, as per Habakkuk 3:4 original Hebrew. He is as the light, and from his hand horns protrude, and this is the hiding of his power. Thanks very much. I'm just going to leave you with a couple of bits of work that I did that try and falsify what I've done, just to show you that I'm, trying to make sure it's correct. And so I'll just leave you with that. Thanks very much. My name is Lee, and I'm a Christian.